everybody. This is Jeanette Anderson here with the Bodacity Show for this week. And this week I have the fabulous Melody Owen with me from Author Nation. And so I'm going to welcome Melody. I'm glad you're here. And as you can see, folks, I'm in a diner. I was on the road today. And so literally an authentic diner from the 50s. Elvis is alive and well and living in Golden, BC in the diner here. So part of a mobile lifestyle is sometimes you have to time your things so that you can get your podcast in and get to somewhere where there's Wi-Fi. So I'm glad I made it on time, and I'm glad you're here, Melody. Thank you for being here today. I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about her, and then we're going to find out a little more, and we'll jump in on the topic of, is my story book worthy, and how do you get started with that? Because I know a lot of you are thinking about or have set New Year's intentions that you're going to write a book this year, or you've been thinking about it for a long time. So that's part of why we really wanted to have her here to talk about how do you know if you're ready and how do you get going. So Melody Ann is the founder of Author Nation, a publishing system and community for nonfiction authors. Melody brings her decades of experience in publishing, writing, editing, and storytelling to her clients, enabling them to write and publish their books with both the growth of the author and the reader in mind. Outside of her support of authors, Melody Ann loves to wander in the mountains of British Columbia and snuggle up with a cat, a cup of tea, and a good book. Not at the same time. Oh, I don't know. I think that's a very great thing to cuddle up with all three at the same time. So welcome. Tell us a little something about you that we wouldn't guess from reading your bio or your about us or whatever. What's
Thanks,
something
Jeanette.
People wouldn't guess?
Yeah, thanks, Jeanette. I actually meant I don't wander the mountains and snuggle with cats at the same time. That's what I meant. Okay. I do snuggle with the cats and a cup of tea and a good book at the same time.
Okay, that's good.
That's my winter activity, and my summer activity is wandering the mountains.
Got it.
Something that not everyone knows about me. I can do a handstand still, even though I've not been a competitive gymnast for a very long time. And awesome. I love walking on my hands. I used to be able to walk up the stairs.
Wow, that's a lot of upper body strength. Holy cow.
I had a lot of upper body strength as a child.
That's impressive. That's very impressive. Okay, yeah. And that you can still do a handstand is impressive. No. Maybe if a group of about 6 men held my legs and pulled them up, maybe for about 30 seconds before I collapsed on my nose. Okay, so that's very handy. So how did you get into the work that you're doing? And tell us a little bit about your why. Why does this matter to you so much? Why do you do what you do?
So I've been doing this a long time. I started out teaching English in Japan, actually, and I moved to South America. I was living in Peru. I was teaching at a university down there, and Oxford University Press found out that I had a visa and could work there. So they came knocking and got me to do their marketing, public relations, consulting with the distributors down in South America and in Chile, Ecuador, Bolivia, and Peru. And so I did that for a few years. That was so much fun. And I've just really been part of, I love teaching English. I love teaching storytelling. I love working with people. I love working with their stories. I have a personal story as well about, I reframed my story and changed my life through reframing my story. And I love working with entrepreneurs, people who want to write memoirs, and helping them reframe their story, because that's one of the big pieces, and we'll talk about it later. If you're ready to write your book, how do you know? And it's about the framing, but we'll get back to that later. So that's really how I got started in it. Was way back when I left university, traveling around the world. I kind of fell into it and never looked back.
That's very cool. I still want to live in Japan, and I love Peru. Where were you in Peru?
So I lived in Lima, but I worked all the way throughout Peru. So I did quite a lot of traveling in the different countries, and
I love Lima and the whole area. Yeah, I did the Incan Trail and did a lot of traveling around Peru and all sorts of stuff, and it's a fascinating country. As there, Bolivia and where would did you say Ecuador? Was that the other country you said?
I've been in Ecuador as well. I love Bolivia. One of my favorite places in the world.
That's so interesting because I went all around South America. I don't want to get us too sidetracked, but that was the one country I didn't like. So we're gonna have to talk and compare notes because I just found it depressed. but anyways, let's talk. So tell me about the topic that you were just mentioning. How do we know when we're ready to write a book?
Yeah, such a good question. So if you're going, let's break it down. There's the memoir, people who want to write memoir. And the first time you write your memoir, I always tell people to write it for yourself. Don't think about a reader, write it entirely for yourself, because what you're doing is you are revisiting your story. You're dealing with any trauma or hurt or questions, and you are, just get it out. And you want to be a victim in it and blame everyone, do whatever you need to do, just do it. Now, if you want to write that memoir and publish it, that's when you start reframing things. That's when you say, I don't need to blame anymore. I can look at it through new eyes. I've reframed the story. I've put myself at the center. Things are no longer happening to me. I can now look at, why I reacted that way, and not with judgment, but now that makes sense that I did that. Maybe it wasn't a good idea at the time, but I did it for this reason. And that's what the readers want to know. The readers want that reframe of somebody's story, because when we're reading memoirs, we're often looking to reframe our own story. And so reading other people's memoirs help people reframe their story. And so that's the piece for memoir. If you're writing a book for business, on the other hand, then you are ready when you either have been working for a long time and you are the expert and you have your definite thoughts about your industry, and you are willing to do the research to learn even more as you do the book. So people who think that they know it all and I'm just going to throw down what I know, they don't write books as well as people who are like, I've been around a long time and I think I have something to say, and I'm going to write down what I know, and I'm going to research what other people are thinking, and I'm going to kind of compare and contrast. And in the end, you put your own values in the book. You put your own perspective on the industry and your own perspective on things. And that's what the reader wants. And that's what will make people want to come and work with you. And so if you want to write a business book, you need to look at it. I think that's how you want to look at it.
Awesome. So I've often been told, as many people, and as it says in your thing, a lot of people have been told you should write a book. And I've had a very varied background and lots of stories. So lots of people say, oh, you've got to write a book, you've got to write a book. And what's always stopped me is the thought that, well, it's interesting to me, and it might be interesting, but really, truly, what value does it have? And so it wasn't until someone mentioned the phrase instructional biography that I kind of went, okay, maybe that makes sense. So when you're talking about reframing the story, that's really about taking what you've learned through your journeys, using your stories to illustrate points and turn it into basically a teaching or a value-added process for people. Is that what you're talking about when you're saying reframe the story?
Yes. So when you are writing for a reader, you don't want to preach. You're not teaching and preaching, but you're telling a story through which they can learn lessons. They can see the world in a new way. They can find a path for themselves. Now, some memoirs now kind of mix genre. I worked with an author who mixed genre and self-help, because she was a counselor and she'd been through something. And so she took her counseling and she merged those two. In the back, she had a toolkit on for people who dealt with a similar situation to herself. And so you're coming at it through, there's a theme in a memoir, like we are talking about coming of age or, overcoming adversity or whatever your theme is. And then this is my story. This is my path through it, not from, and some people say, do you write from your wounds or your scars? Well, never from your wounds. If you're still bleeding, you don't write a book. When you've healed over and you can see things differently, that's when you start writing your book, right? That's that writing for the reader, because the reader doesn't want you to be blaming and angry in this. They want your wisdom. What wisdom have you gained from this experience that you've had? And that's what we're looking for in your memoir.
Awesome. Now, I know a lot of people, and I certainly have had this consideration myself, think that memoirs are really only that if I write my story, only my, five aunts and uncles are going to read it and no one else, because I'm not famous, I'm not, some celebrity, etc. So how do regular people think about memoirs in terms of like marketability? Are they something that people will actually buy? And how do you make a marketable memoir?
Yes, such a great question. So if you can merge your memoir with your business, that is the best thing. So for example, back to my client who she was a counselor, she wrote a book. It's not quite published yet, so I'm just not going to talk too much about it. And so she took that experience in her life and her counseling, and she created a memoir from it, put a toolkit at the end, and now she'll be able to do group counseling on this particular topic because she's gone through it herself. She has some extra layers and extra things to give. And so if you are writing a memoir that is related to your business, then what I do with my clients is we sit down and we say, well, how does this all fit together? Do you have courses that you're going to lead people into? Are you coaching? Are you a life coach and you've overcome something? Or we look at what all the choices are and we decide how it fits in. Now, there are people who have written memoirs and they don't fit in at all. And if you're going to do that, then and if you want to sell memoirs, you are committing to a lot of, like, you've got your business over here, and you've got your memoir over here. You've now have two jobs. You've now two full-time businesses. And so when people come to me and they say, I want to write a memoir, it has nothing to do with anything else I do with my life, then we need to sit down and talk about, well, what does that mean? What does that look like? And some people just want to write it and get it out. And that's fine too, as long as you're not expecting to sell a lot of books because you're not doing any marketing, right?
Exactly.
So we need to have that conversation before you delve in. And some people, what we can do is we can say, okay, well, let's write a book that's not a memoir. Let's write a business book or a self-help, or let's pick another genre, but let's weave your story through that. And then that might be a better choice. So I can't say you have to do it this way or that way. Each author needs to look at it individually. And when I sit down with my authors, we go through all the choices. And if it's not a good fit, you just don't write a book, and that's okay too. Right? I just want to say that not everyone who's being told you should write a book should write a book. Right?
Yeah, exactly. And if it's not something that you enjoy, although I know lots of authors who are prolific authors who do not enjoy the process, but ideally it should be something that you enjoy if you're going to invest as much time and effort and money into it. And speaking of which, so I want to know, how to get started. But before that, most people think of writing a book. Who do they need to help them? So who are the kind of people they should hire, and how do they know that they're a good one?
Yes, so that's such a good question. So I have a checklist for people who are planning a book. And in that, I actually go through all the pieces you need to know. You need to write your book. You need a developmental editor. You need a line editor, a copy editor, a proofreader, an interior designer, a cover, right? Like I go through all of that in that planning checklist. So it's all in there, authornation.online, if anyone wants to check that out. But so you either need to do it yourself or you need all those pieces. Right? You need the public relations person and the marketer and the different types of editing and the designers, right? There are lots of pieces to it. And some people can do some of it themselves and others need to hire everything out. I hope I answered your question. That's a big
one. Well, and so if people are thinking, and I know this is kind of like saying how much is a car, but if people are thinking, okay, I want to write a book, let's say a business book. Yeah. Give or take, what's a realistic, and I know this is like, it really depends. Are we talking a mini book, or are we talking a, epic tome and so forth? How long should they plan for from idea through to book being sold?
I love this question because a lot of people say, I don't want to go traditional because it takes too long. Traditional publishing can take 18 months, 2 years. But here's the thing, and this is what self-publishing authors often aren't doing. You take in how long it takes to write the book, then go through the editing process. That, let's say it takes you 6 months to write a book and editing takes another 4 months. We're 10 months in now, right? And then there's the creating the marketing plan and the book launch and the interior design and all of those pieces. And once you have a book, you can send it out to people to review it, and then wait 6 weeks, get the review back before you actually publish it. Because then on the inside of the book are all these wonderful reviews, which look really, really good. And this is something self-published authors usually miss. They're like, oh, I don't want to take that long. But the reason traditional publishing takes a long time is they do all these other little pieces that in the end add up to a bigger launch, a better launch, and they make more money. And so how long should it take you? I think you can reasonably get a book out in a year if you're really dedicated and you spend several hours. During that year, you really want to be building a following, people who are interested in the book. You also want to be writing the book, editing the book, and going through the publishing process of design and whatnot as well, and have a launch plan, a marketing plan, and actually execute them. And so that's a really big job. Can it be done in a year? Absolutely. And the other thing that self-published authors do is they write the book, they put it out there, and then they're like, okay, I guess I should market it, right? And
Yes.
with my authors, what I do is I help them figure out how they can, and only if they want. And some authors are like, no, I want to write it first, and we'll talk about that later. Fine, that's fine. But what I recommend is that as you're writing it, you start developing the following for the book. And that way you can get it done. So I'm going to say about, give yourself at least a year for the book project. That's what I'm going to say.
Most of the people that I know that have written and got books through to published and out in the marketplace, it's been 2 to 3 years for most of them, right?
Yes.
And how about cost? So what's a realistic minimum that people should set aside? Let's say they do a lot of it themselves, and by the way, don't design your own cover for the love of God, and don't do most of your editing or have your son or daughter do it. Get professionals on those two things for sure. But what's a reasonable expectation in terms of amount of money, let's say, for a self-published book?
Yes. So I'm just going to go back to the 2 or 3 years. So that's not uncommon for things to take that long. If you do want to do it in a shorter amount, having a team in place can speed it up. But you're right. If you are self-published and you're really doing it on your own, it's often a 2-year or a 3-year process. It can be done in a year. I don't recommend less. Okay. So how much does it cost? Oh, such a great question. I don't even know how to answer that. So things that can cost you money is a book coach. So other things, editing will cost you money. And so there's 4 stages of editing that your book goes through if you're doing all of them. The interior design will cost money. The book cover will cost money. The if you're paying someone to upload it and just put it into Amazon and Lulu and Ingram Spark and Smashbooks and all the places that distribute books. If you're hiring a public relations person, that will cost you money. If you're hiring social media person, that will cost you money. And here's the thing, it may cost you money, but it may also really be worth it. Right. So people sometimes authors are like, well, that sounds like a lot of money. It's like, okay, so it depends on how you view it. Paying to promote your book can pay off, right? So how much can all these cost? Book covers, you can get them on Upwork for or Fiverr, but really be careful who you work with. You can get a really nice, like really well done professional artistic cover for $500. Editing, if you're all 4 stages of editing, probably will cost you at least $4,000. It's 4 editors, can cost more. There are ways that you can reduce the cost of your own editing. One is to go through the beta reader process. That can be helpful. There are some excellent beta readers in the world who, if they are willing to read your book and give you feedback, they can do some of what a developmental editor might do. You can do some exchanges and edit somebody else's book, you edit theirs. That will, I'm still saying get a professional edit, but if you have, the more eyes you can have on your book before you put it in your editor's hand, the less work for the editor and the more you'll save money, right?
Exactly.
Interior design, another at least $500, I'd say. So it really depends on what it is. So, and And how do you find the right people? So what I do, people come into my community and I sit down and I create a roadmap with them. This is what, this is the outline of your book. This is the path. This is the timelines and the deadlines. And then we look at your budget. This is your budget. So if this is your overall budget, we're going to allocate this much for editing, this much for cover, this much for interior design based on your budget. And then I have people who I trust, and then I can help you, help my clients find the right people, because what you don't want to do is just go find some random person online and hope for the best, because that generally doesn't work out. I can even help you find a Fiverr person.
Yeah.
So,
Exactly.
Because I know what I'm doing, I can actually help you find the less expensive people if that's what you want. So I don't know if I helped you and how much money it's going to cost.
Well, yeah. And I mean, it really is like asking how much is a car, because it depends, it could be $10,000 up to $200,000 or more. So my estimate, or what I assume a lot of people have spent from many of the authors that I know, is generally somewhere between $10,000 to $50,000 to get a book produced. Depends on what you do, how you do it, and how much time it takes, and how many people you go through, and so forth and so on. But you probably need to budget at least $10,000 to be able to get going and to get it done. And as you said, Melody, it's an expense, but you have to have a strategic reason for writing the book and a plan for marketing it. It's kind of like a lot of practitioners become business people without learning how to do business. Authors become authors without learning how to sell books. Yeah. And therefore they get very frustrated because they have boxes and boxes of books in their garage that they've spent all this time and money and heart and effort in getting out into the world, and it's not out in the world because they're not selling it. They don't have a plan for marketing it and moving it and having it actually really help them in their business. So I love your comment about it really does have to be tie in to what is the customer journey you take people on, and what do you move them to from there. So don't make it a very expensive business card, make it a strategic part of your customer journey, which makes a huge difference. Yeah. So what's the best way to get started? Because a lot of people feel very daunted by it. So how do they get started?
Yeah. So of course I'm going to say, call me.
Yes.
Call me and I'll help you set up a roadmap from idea to published. The best way to get started, if you are 100% going to do it on your own, the best way to get started is answer these questions. What are my goals? So how does this fit into my life? How does this fit into my business? And then once you understand that, who is my ideal reader? Pick one person. I know that sounds crazy. My book's for everyone. I hear it all the time. It is. But if you are writing to one person, you're writing to everyone. If you're writing to everyone, you're writing to no one. So pick one ideal reader and really understand that person. What are their fears? What are their dreams? What are their beliefs? What do they believe that you don't believe? What don't they believe that you do believe? What are they doing that you're not doing? What are they doing that they shouldn't be doing? Or what should they be doing? Like all of this, like really dig in and understand them. And once you know your goals inside out and backwards, and you know that ideal reader really, really well, inside out and backwards as well, the content is, you're going to come up with a concept statement for the book, and everything you write is going to fall into that concept statement. So your concept statement is usually a big idea, or it's a reader transformation. So a big idea might be, Seth Godin wrote Permission Marketing back in 1999. And his big idea was we shouldn't be sending random emails to people. We should be only sending emails to people for whom we have permission. That was a radical idea, big radical idea in 1999. I mean, now we have laws around it, but back then it was a big idea book. He wasn't trying to transform the reader. He was transforming the industry, and he did it through a big idea. When you think about reader transformation, how are you transforming that reader, right? So for example, how to parent in a way that you no longer have to deal with temper tantrums. We're transforming the parent and in turn transforming the child, right? So you want to think about the transformation of the reader. And so you have your goals, you fully understand your audience, your ideal reader, you know what that big transformation is, or the big idea, then you can start outlining your book. And everything in that outline needs to match those three pieces. And if they don't, you're not writing the right book.
Love it. That's awesome. And that goes for, by the way, all of those things go for your marketing in every area, in every arena, whatever piece of content you put out, every social media post, all of them should fit that criteria. So how can people find out more about you and connect with you?
Oh, so as I mentioned earlier, I have a planning checklist, authornation.online. If you want that planning checklist, it's really, I call it a checklist, but really it's a guide. It's, 10 pages, lots of everything you need to know before you get started. And then on top of that, you can always I offer free events all the time. AuthorNation.community is the name of the community, AuthorNation.community. We offer free networking events every month. I offer education every month. I have a webinar, a get started webinar every month. And so people can come to any one of those, and you can find those either in the community or by signing up for the planning checklist, and you'll get my emails, and that will explain it as well. Or you can go into the community and you can message me directly as well. So I'm completely accessible in the community.
Awesome. And that's why your community is as engaged and vibrant as it is, because I've been in there and there's a lot of engagement there. So, all right. So thank you so much for all of that. Let's wrap up with one kind of final thought or encouragement you'd like to leave everyone with when it comes to thinking about writing their book this year. So if someone's thought about it and say, okay, this is the year, what's the thing that you would tell them?
Get help wherever it is. Get support. If it's just, at your local library, every Saturday, there's a writers group, go do that every Saturday, like you'd go to church. Just, go every Saturday, find your people, find a group of people, and get the support you need to make it through. It's a big project, and you're going to feel lost and overwhelmed, and that's normal. So getting the help you need, finding people who will support you through the journey will help you when you feel lost and overwhelmed, so you don't get stuck.
Awesome. I love that. And it's so true on so many things in our life. Whatever we really actually care about and want to create this year, it's time to get support with that, get help with that, and get moving with it. So thank you so much for being here. And I love your passion for what you do. And I love the practicality of the advice that you give. It's really very kind of grounded and actionable. And so if you are thinking of getting that book written this year, please connect with Melody and get some support and just talk to her about how she works and what she does and see if it's a good fit for you. But don't try and go it alone. It's too tough to do, like you said. And commitment requires accountability and a structure to really support you in maintaining it. So do that. Thank you, Melody, for being here. Happy New Year, and Happy New Year, everyone. Have a bodacious week. And remember, the Purpose and Profit Breakthrough is coming up shortly on the 17th to the 19th. I look forward to seeing you all there. And it will really support you in getting clear on what are your goals this year that you really, really want to do in order to be the difference that only you can be. How do you dial in your why? How do you know what to do at the stage you're at? And how do you do that in a way that fits for you so that you can get more clients and be more successful? And it could be that writing a book's part of that. It could be that you're just starting out. Wherever you're at, please join me at the Purpose and Profit Breakthrough, 3 half days, January 17th to the 19th. Look forward to seeing you there. And by the way, if you're watching this after that date, I do have that event on an ongoing basis 3 times a year. So please check that out in the Facebook group. Thank you for being here, Melody. Great to see you. And let's get writing, everybody. Sit down, pick up a pen, type in your computer, but start today. All right. Bye for now.